Hi, I am Sarah Coleman, and this is my first episode of my podcast. Surprised to be here.
Woohoo!
I'm starting off with a really, a very big star. You're a star. You are.
Give me a fucking break.
Oh my God. Jill Kargman,
I love you.
comedian,
That's really
actress. You're the star of Odd Mom Out. You are
Yes.
a writer, a badass.
Thanks.
Like everything.
I'll take it. I'm moving in.
Instagram.
Where's the Murphy bed?
Literally. Well, I mean, I was thinking of getting a car bed for my first.
That's really funny.
Yeah, they're $2,000.
Oh shit!
I was like, maybe a few episodes in, I can.
I know this woman
Invest.
who's, you know how people do those like creepy Hamptons marriages where the mom moves out there and like the dad just takes the shitney on Fridays?
Yeah. Okay. So actually, it's really funny. I was thinking about I've been stalking you for like a week straight. In the middle of the night, I'm like watching like YouTubes of you and this rabbi.
Oh
at the
yeah,
night.
my rabbi.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you don't do that.
Do what?
Your husband, you stay with him.
So I stay with my husband. Yes. Also, we don't have a country house.
Oh, good.
I never aspire to have a second home. But what I was going to say is my friend found out that her husband was banging hookers in her son's race car bed.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. What is it? It's the massage parlors.
Yeah. It's the Latvian massage
Yes.
circles. And then there's wine tastings where they come like pour the wine and do these tastings, quote unquote, but then they like pop your cork and blow your husband or whatever. But
have you ever heard of Nuru massage?
no, what's that?
Yeah. So my last boyfriend, that's how it ended.
He was doing like a special massage.
He was doing that.
What's Nuru mean?
It is when you rub oil all over your body.
Yeah.
The
Isn't that normal massage?
No, the masseuse does that
Yeah.
on herself.
Oh, on herself.
And then on you.
Got it. And then you like roll
And then
around.
you roll your bodies together.
Well, if that's not like begging for penetration, I don't know.
and
what
then
is.
you do that. And then
Who's not banging if you do Nuru massage?
no one. No
Like,
one's
that's-
not. You're doing
Everyone's
it. I was like,
stiffing.
oh, that's cool. Okay. It
I don't even like where they put their whole arm
I
on
know,
you.
I
I don't
don't-
want your arm on me.
I know.
I'm fine with like the digits.
I know. And the thing also when you're getting the massage in the chair, they're like, if it's a guy, they're like pushing their dick up.
yeah,
on
I've
you.
had that actually.
Yeah, it's a lot.
This particular one, I was like, oh my God.
So
it was the
your
Tic
friend
Tac.
found out that
Yeah, she was having these like wine tasting dinners with other guys who were like July Hamptons widowers. And they would like pair off with this like circle of Eastern European hooker and they go and have sex in son's race car bed, like in all the kids' rooms. So you taste the wine.
how did
and
she
then-
find out that they were having sex in the bed?
Because when she confronted him that she knew that the private investigator like found these
Right.
funds from the joint checking account to this like wine sommelier circle that quote unquote curates your wine cellar.
Yeah,
She
right.
confronted him and was like, did you like fuck this bitch in our bed? And he was like, no, of course not. I did it in our son's bed. But so I was just picturing like the kids' vanity plate. You know, it's from like Pottery
It's
Barn or
just
something.
so
It's like
sad,
it's like the
those-
Pulp Fiction drive-in car. Like it's like
Yeah.
a car bed.
Yeah, they're
But
amazing.
it had the kids' like name with no vowels or some bullshit, you know?
And did she stay with him?
No, God, no.
Well, that's good. I mean, I don't know.
No,
God,
he's an animal. He's an animal. He was like snorting coke off hooker tits in Reno.
Yeah. A lot of them are.
Wholesome.
Yeah. No, I was thinking we could play just to like, warm up maybe a little bit.
Okay,
I don't know if I feel like we're warm, but I really want to do a word association.
I'm in menopause, so I'm always warm. Yes,
Yeah.
I love word association. Like in
Okay.
Skyfall,
Yes.
James Bond, when he says Skyfall, bitch. Remember?
Yeah,
But I won't
we're
call
gonna
you a
do
bitch.
that.
I won't call you a bitch.
That's okay. When I was trying to figure out the name of my podcast, I was harassing every person that is within 10 feet of me. And my one of the guys who works for me, he goes, you should definitely have bitch in the title. I was like, oh, cool. Thank you.
Well, the thing is, then all the
was
prudes,
like-
all the prudes like star it out, like they put an asterisk for the I or something.
Yeah. I was
hate
like, I
that.
don't want to come in with being blocked.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to like
It
surprise
might like
them.
suppress it on Apple or some shit.
Yeah,
you
no,
know what
no,
I mean?
no, I'm not-
Everyone's so fucking prude.
I know.
I hate
I
everyone.
wanted to like gaslight them. Just be like, this is going to be really wholesome. And then we talk about, new room massages.
Yeah.
It's gonna, and nothing about anyone's career. Like,
I'm fine with whatever. You are in the driver's seat, and I'm along for the ride in this Corvette bed.
All right. So word association.
Okay.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Muscles.
Love that. Country club.
Tennis.
Yeah. Doppelganger.
German.
I thought you were going to say Marilyn Manson.
Oh, yeah. People, someone once
that?
called me, like when Twitter first started, or maybe it wasn't when it first started, but when I was doing Odd Mom Out, I had a social media consultant that they got me. And I was like new at it. And I was just writing.
When was this?
I think it was before we were on the air. So it was like 2014. And I just turned 40 and I wasn't, really into social media, but they gave me this person I had to meet with in Pasadena. And they said like, okay, let's start, So I was doing some practice tweets and someone immediately wrote back like, you are Marilyn Manson in drag or something like that. So you basically have to develop a really thick skin, but I kind of already have one because I was old. But like, if you're a kid and you're, a young actor, actress, and you're a teenager or in college even, that would be probably extremely upsetting. Whereas I don't give a shit. Like I'm married with my 3 kids. Like I already have my life. I'm almost 50 in a year and a half. So I don't care. But if you're young and sort of more fragile, I think social media there's a really pernicious side. I like keeping up with my friends and seeing their kids grow up, but that would fucking suck to be taken down like that.
Yeah, that would be horrifying. I find social media, it's such a double, there's like
edged sword.
There's really, really because I have so much, this I do, part of the reason I started the podcast was because I find myself feeling guilty a lot.
Why?
Just in general, that's the thing that it pushed me to start this podcast because I feel like there's so much gratitude that I have, and I'm so grateful and so lucky and all these things, and for social media because I really did build my career on social media, and then there's this side of it where I'm just like, I really want people to know who I really am, and I feel like it's such a it is there's so much to perceive, that isn't real.
Right. Well, you're younger. I think millennials, because it's so much of your life was spent publicly on it, whereas for me it was later in my life, so I feel like I was formed. I think it's really hard to be a young person and have this sort of construct that you have to, the ambassador of yourself that you have to put forth, and I work on that with my daughters. My son doesn't really give a shit. He barely posts, but my daughters will show each other and show me which one is better and which one. I'm like, guys, don't overthink it. I just slap it up there. I don't give a shit. But they're still at a point where they feel exposed, even though they have private accounts, even just for their peers,
But I do think something that I met your daughter at BJ's dinner, and she was so, the same. I was blown.
She loved you.
I was so blown away. I was like, this girl is really,
she's super
she has
cool.
Such a good
she
head
has
on
her shit
shoulders.
together. She really does. But
and she's real.
She's real. She knows who she is. She's really smart. But in a bathing suit, when anybody puts on a bathing, it's just not. It's a different culture now where you're putting these sort of photos of your trip, or you want to curate some sort of thing. I'm trying to just always steer them away from that and not think as much.
And did you always feel that way? I know that we both grew up in the city, and under sort of this on the Upper East Side is a little, it's intense.
It's funny because you live downtown. Everyone always assumes I live downtown and asks why I don't, and they are totally weirded out that I returned to the Upper East Side. But I think that you can't think outside the box unless you know what the box is. And I liked a traditional upbringing. I had a really happy time. I was rebelling a little bit because I didn't like my uniform and I didn't like my teacher, or I didn't, whatever it was. But I'm glad I had it, kind of. I see my kids, some of the kids that they were growing up with who it was more like free for all. And I think that can be harder to sort of stay focused and stay. I don't know. I never pressured my kids, but manners are important to me. I wanted them to say, hello, Miss Coleman, and shake hands properly and look you in the eye because it just shows that you care about people. It's not that I'm trying to be an uptight like Park Avenue.
No, I think that that's like the most important. You're also, I mean, I hear you're on time all the time.
I was early today. I feel like I was raised, my dad would always say, if you're not 10 minutes early, you're late.
Like, I mean, it's amazing. It sounds like your parents were just like very hands-on, but like allowed you to be who you really are.
Please, like if you knew what I was doing at age 8, I would like take the subway down to Astor Place, walk around St. Mark's because I thought it was like fun and pumps.
I got my belly button pierced in like 6th grade at St. Mark's.
I was and I had no cell phone. I was just like parading around and with my bag of tokens. You'd be arrested.
Yeah. But it's like, you didn't like go too far.
Well, I did probably when I was 13, 14, I was sneaking out and going to nightclubs. Like I could have been like raped and killed, but I just luckily wasn't. But I was always very street smart. Mm-hmm. But I snuck out all the time and I lied about where I was. My kids can't do that because I have their trackers, but I actually like it. Like they have me on tracker too. We just always, all 5 of us know where the others are.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I also now with phones, I don't feel as scared. I mean, I was just like going out into the night.
Yeah, I mean, I was never scared.
I was never scared either.
I would be walking home. Yeah, it's horrifying. I was walking home alone through Central Park with headphones on.
Oh, I couldn't do that because the rats. Oh. I don't care about the murderers. I care more about the rats.
Oh, you don't like?
I fucking hate rats. Really? It's like the one part of New York I can't stand.
You don't go to the East Village?
I go to the East Village, but I don't like walk through Tompkins Square Park in July or August ever because you will have a sighting.
Yeah.
And you could put a saddle on some of those motherfuckers and like ride them off.
Yeah, they can be. I mean, some of them have turned like they're not just rats; they're like creatures.
They're creatures of the night because they are immune. It's like
to everything.
Yeah, like the poison is immunotherapy. Yeah, they're like super rats.
I think they glow also. So when was your career? How did it? Like, did you know that you just wanted to do this? Like, it seems like your social media started later, but like, how did it totally
started late? So I knew that as a child of the '80s in the magazine heyday with Condé Nast and Hearst, I wanted to work in magazines. Yeah. That was what I wanted. I loved that whole world. I would get in bed with all these magazines that my parents subscribed to and just like joyously leaf through them all, starting at a really young age. And then when I was in college, I came home. I started to come home a lot. Like I really was just itching to get back to New York. And I made friends with this guy and I went to his birthday dinner and was seated next to Amy Astley, now she's Architectural Digest, but she used to be beauty director of Vogue. And there had been this, you were probably too little to remember, but there was this incident in Singapore where this idiot American spray painted a car. His name was Michael Fay, and he was sentenced to a caning, like a lashes, which is like a whip, but it's like metal rod and flesh flies. So it drew this international attention to corporal punishment in Singapore, and all these people were horrified and decided they didn't want to go there and cover it. So she was like, I've had 3 writers cancel on this Singapore story on beauty because all these girls would get like boob jobs and almond eye shape surgery for graduation. So she's like, do you want to go? And this is back when magazines had money. So they sent me business class to Singapore. I was 20.
Oh my God.
And at the time, it was pre 9/11, obviously. You could just like trade it in for a store credit. So I was like, hi, can I trade this ticket in and I'll go coach, but then I can go all around the world. Like I basically had this store credit with American Airlines. They gave me like a really expensive ticket. Wow. So I wound up, because I graduated in 3 years, I skipped my junior year. All my friends were seniors and I went on this like odyssey by myself, which was so cool. And I filed my story via fax machine because I'm the crypt keeper. Dinosaur in my hotel in Geneva. I faxed the story handwritten to Amy Astley, and then she faxed back like, great. So my first article was in Vogue, and then by the time I got back, I had a job at Interview magazine, which was Andy Warhol started.
Yeah.
So I worked there for 2 years. I was not happy there. And then I started to feel like I wanted to do more than just magazines. I started working for MTV, and I was a permalancer, which means no health insurance, but I was a permanent freelancer, and I freelanced there sort of on and off until I never got hired again because I was pregnant.
Wow.
It was really weird. Like they just took one look at me and decided I wasn't cool anymore.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's
it was
really
great.
great.
So,
Wow. So you were, what age was that? Like
28.
wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
like I was 9 months pregnant at 28 or like 20, 28. And my boss was like, holy shit. Like they brought me in for the show. And he's like, are you pregnant? And meanwhile, all these guys were like 37, 38 with vintage Clash t-shirts and messenger bags, like that Rejuvenile article in New York Magazine. I was a decade younger. And they just were like, oh. And then one of them, I confronted him in a Whole Foods. It was like, that was so weird that you just never booked me again. And he said, well, I thought you were busy with the baby. I
So that was
assumed
like
you'd
later
be.
on.
Yeah, like I saw him a couple years later, but you wouldn't say to a man, I just assumed you were busy with your kid.
Yeah, no. I mean,
It was awful.
do you always like confront situations in that way?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Do you find that it ever like how have you navigated that with have you ever felt like you were sort of really out of your element, or you just sort of like, or like after the fact, you when you have like stood up for yourself and you've like, you're right,
Yeah, I know I'm right.
and after the fact you're like, oh, like, do you ever feel any sort of fear?
No.
You're fearless. And it's
I'm
like
pretty
amazing.
fearless because now that I'm older, I'm pretty
Right, but
fearless. I would say
when did that happen?
when I first, like people always ask me with Odd Mom Out, is that you? And I always say, it's me at 28. It's not me at 48. When I was 28, I had such a strong sense of self. I felt like this is me. I know who I am. And then you have a kid and it sort of shakes the Etch-a-Sketch on your identity a little bit because you feel a little bit vulnerable through this child. And you're suddenly like, first of all, you're exhausted. So I sleep 9 hours a night. My blood pressure is 86/60. I'm a freak of nature. Like I am a vampire and I go down for 9 hours. So having a kid was really hard for us. I mean, my husband, his sleep was uninterrupted, but I was just, a lot of it fell on me. And so I think I was more emotional because I was so fried. Like I just felt so sleep deprived for about 11 years.
Yeah.
That
I feel that. I think it is a lot of the time like something, when you're like feel that way, there is like something so directly related to like your health.
yeah, I can
Or,
take
like,
on
your sleep.
anything if
Yeah.
I'm well rested.
Yeah.
So I felt a little vulnerable then, and I had a harder time sort of advocating for myself just because you're just tired. It does throw things into perspective. So I wasn't gonna like throw a hissy fit about MTV because I had other things and I had my kid. So I was just really, the first couple years we felt like it wasn't a family, it was a couple with a baby because we could just put Sadie on my hip and go to Denmark and go everywhere. We were very much like shoestring. No baby nurse, no housekeeper, no babysitter. We had like a patchwork of babysitters if we had to go out to a birthday, but I would routinely bring my baby to a bar, like Sweet Home Alabama white trash style, with like, hi, here I am in a bar with a baby. But I wasn't going to get a sitter for 1 hour to go to like your dumb birthday drinks, So we were kind of ragtag in the beginning. And then I had a second and third a year apart and a miscarriage in there. So it was like just sort of chaos for 5 years. And that time is kind of a blur for me. But I kind of built back up my resolve. And then by the time I had my show, I feel like I had more balls than I had had even pre-children. Like I just feel like all the chutzpah, the tank was refilled. I didn't care. I had my priorities. My family was kind of first and everything else was gravy. So I just didn't give a shit as much.
Yeah. Do you think that when I like watch Odd Mom Out, I was wondering like throughout the whole thing, I was sort of like, I wonder if, if you sort of speak your insecurities out loud, they sort of lose their power. Like, do you think that you were just putting it out like on the table and you were just like, this is like everything that's ever crossed my mind?
Yeah, that was me when I was a new mom and I didn't know all the shit that people were doing, like teaching their toddler Mandarin and like, buying coming home outfits from the hospital.
But no, most people don't do that. It's like this
It's
bubble.
right, but I was in the bubble.
Right, the bubble.
But I feel like the yardstick changes from place to place, but even in
there's
Middleburg, Virginia, or wherever you were, there's always going to be like a Nellie Olson or a villain or somebody who has more money. I actually think it's probably worse outside the city, which doesn't make sense to people, but mysterious, like apartments are mysterious. You go into a building, no one sees the street value. Like when you are driving in a small town, you're like, that big white house is the richest person in all of town. Like that's
right.
So much more.
There's much more energy.
Yeah, and what car you drive.
Yeah.
None of that shit matters here.
Right.
But
I'm also not from Middleburg, Virginia, though.
No, I know that. You're from here. You're
I'm
native.
From New York.
Just passing through.
I was passing through. But I will never drive through Virginia ever again.
Yeah, I don't like banjo music, but no, I'm kidding. But I feel like some of that stuff, it wasn't so much insecurities like I was doing something wrong. It was just you want to give your kid every opportunity and do everything right. And it's heightened in the show because it's my sister-in-law. Mm-hmm. But I wound up feeling that way anyway, because these moms, I always had like spit up on me and, I looked like Urban Outfitters diarrheaed on me. And they all were in head to toe, like perfect clothing that seemed all in place. But I didn't realize that they had like half of Manila in their triplex.
Yeah. It's pretty like hard to grow up and just see that. And like, I feel like even when I was growing up, no one talked about anything. Like, I feel like only recently people like talk about what's going on, like if anyone, I don't know, like.
Well, that's sort of in the pilot is when I was growing up in the 80s, the like really, really rich girls in my class at Spence who had limousines, which don't really exist anymore except for like a bachelor party in Vegas or Atlantic City. But they would be dropped off a block from school because they were embarrassed to pull up like smacked out in the limousine. Whereas now they're like, pull right in. There's this whole sort of fabulosity on like reality TV and all this stuff that celebrates kind of wealth and billionaires and status and, just like living your best life, quote unquote. Whereas I feel like that was, even though everyone thinks of the 80s as Gordon Gekko, greed is good and all that, and this sort of hyperbolized Wall Street culture.
That has like the image.
It's very much that image of the 80s, but people, there was an embarrassment of riches. Oh my God, Hard Money. Yes. Okay, perfect.
I love this cover.
Yeah, it's great.
Right?
Yeah, but now people are showy about it.
I know, it's so terrible.
And I think kids are showy. I mean, I always tell this story, but when Ivy was 2, we were standing outside school and she said, "Mommy, why are you the only mommy at school without red bottoms on your shoes?"
Oh my God.
And I was sort of like horrified, but proud that she noticed.
Also because
and I was like, "Oh, I don't spend $1,000 on shoes. I don't do that." So I just sort of always told my kids, "Why don't we have a country house? Because we're never going to get that. And mommy doesn't know how to drive. Sorry."
And do you think you like, even if you could, would you? I mean, if you can.
No, I can't drive.
Can your husband drive?
Yeah, he drives us everywhere. But our thing is that the thing is, like, if you have a country house, you have to go there. And I like to travel. So our biggest splurge is travel. Like, we travel a lot. And I'd much rather do that than have some bricks and mortar place I have to go to and to hang my hat. Psychologically, I don't feel the need.
Yeah. And do you have people, like, how did you deal with those sort of, like, you live on the Upper East Side, you sort of are around all of these.
I'm kind of Midtown, but yeah, I'm Upper East Side adjacent.
Right, Dorito. I grew up on 58th Street.
Oh, so you're Dorito.
I'm Dorito.
Love it.
Yeah. I know. I was reading, I mean, really, like, you're kind of the smarter, you had, like, a smarter path. I was, like, a little bit less smart.
No, you're so smart.
I was like, Westminster, you went to Taft. I got kicked out, but
that's kind of a badge of honor now, like looking back.
I think I was the only. I feel like people like, I was really bad. Like, there was no boundaries. I was like going out at like 12.
Right. Well, that's why. See, I got over it. Like I was
Yeah, same. I
being
got over
really
it by the
bad.
time I was like 18. I was like, I am never gonna do.
See, I got over it at 15 because I went to boarding school in 10th grade, and by
Same.
then I reinvented myself as the goody goody.
Oh, interesting. Because I was like, having a, I was doing drugs in boarding school. I would have like my. It was just so outrageous. I don't even know. I was like, oh my God. It was crazy. I had my drug dealer meet me at the Pizza Hill, and I would just like bring it up and like, probably, I can't get in trouble now.
No,
you
of
know?
course not. What are they gonna do?
I'm
now?
sure they knew. They
I'm
found.
sure you weren't the only one.
No, I was. I was the one. I was like bringing the.
Oh, you were the dealer?
I don't know if I would call it dealer. I was sharing.
Okay.
You know, I was
Yeah,
just
I
like,
get it. You're a generous
I've got.
person.
I was generous with
You're a
it.
very generous individual.
Very generous. But yeah, like really, when I did ask, not to ever come back, they, I went to an all-girls school in Maryland, and I sort of like found a completely different life, and I like was pulled out of like no one there was pretentious. There was no, everyone was just like very nice, and I think I had like the first real taste of like joy and like being comfortable.
That's lucky.
Because I had never really felt that. And it was, I mean, then I came back to the city, and it sort of like took me a few years, but the seed was definitely planted there. Like things, I really like felt at peace in this school. So it was kind of a blessing.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Like I feel like leaving that situation, it was so traumatic at the time, but it ended up being like the best thing. And I feel like most situations that I had most of the time, like any really like insane situation that I've found myself in is, at the end of the day, it sort of has like been the best thing that could have happened.
That's right.
Even when because I did have like, I grew up in with the illusion that we had like a lot of money, and it was it always felt very confusing. My dad is I don't know, do I talk about this kind of stuff on here?
It's up to you.
Like how personal do I get?
Go all the way.
Yeah.
You think?
Yeah, why not?
All right. Okay,
Go big or go
so
home.
my dad is bipolar, and like he's extremely successful, creative, but he has these like cycles. So every say 20 years or so, he has like
That's a big cycle.
yeah, they're
20
like
years? I thought you were going to say like 2
no,
months.
no. So they like, I watched him. He's like so creative, but he didn't really trust people. And growing up, it was sort of like, okay, like he's on a high and like everything's really good, and then like he would crash, and then things wouldn't be great. And so when I was 21, he had a crash, and I had never really experienced that because the first time it happened,
You were a baby.
I was 3, and my parents got divorced, and I was sort of, I don't know if like protected. I think there was definitely a feeling that like something was really going on, but I just like didn't know what it was. So I think a lot of that I internalized, and I took it on. So high school, I had like this, I was living this life that was just so like not real. There was no substance, and it was just like very fast, and drugs and alcohol, and like not paying attention in school, and just like doing whatever like I wanted, but I was just like completely detached. I was like,
And did you just age out of it?
no, when I was 21, I went to go sign up for classes, and like it didn't work. And I hadn't, I got a phone call from this guy, and he was like, your father had a an episode. And so what had happened was like there was we lived in an apartment on 72nd Street, and for, the details are all like, I basically, like, he did not have a house. We did not have a house anymore.
Oh, shit.
And we didn't have, like, everything was gone. And it was like, I just didn't really understand completely what was going on, but it was like I had to stand on my own 2 feet, for the first time. And it's like, it just was like, that situation was, I'm not sure I even felt how intense it was at the time, because it was just like, okay, like my entire life that I knew is completely gone, and I need to grow. Like, I need
But it
to.
taught you self-reliance. I mean,
Oh my
that's
God,
so,
it was like
so
the
lucky
greatest
in a way.
gift, and
I mean, it's awful, but
no, it was not awful. It was like the most amazing thing, because like so much of my family and childhood and like all of my upbringing was everything was like money, it was like
cosseted and protected.
it was just like everything was about money. And we had to, like, my dad healed, like he got sober. I eventually got sober. We sort of we were not like, nothing was defined by money anymore. And it was the relationship that I have with my dad today. He's 90, or he's not 89. It's just like real, it's like completely based around vulnerability, and like there's nothing to hide, like and it also, I don't know that I would have been forced to like build up confidence to even have started doing something on my own. It was pretty intense, but I think that those situations, I've realized, are like the things that make you like
So much stronger.
so much stronger.
Self-reliant.
Yeah.
I mean, you were so young to go through that, but
Yeah, I don't know. It was intense. But I just, have you had a situation where you felt like the floor was like
yeah,
gone?
I've had several. Well, I was engaged twice before I met
Wow.
Harry. And the first time, we didn't have a date. It was my college sweetheart. And then the second time, I couldn't have afforded my own place. So I moved back in with my mom and dad. And I remember, and I'm so close with my parents. Like, I'm addicted to my parents. I'm so lucky. But one sort of hiccup is like when I had called off that wedding and was crying just because I felt like I'm never going to meet anybody. And I literally thought I was going to be a spinster. I mean, it was crazy. Like, I thought I was so old, and I was 24. But I remember the tough love of my parents kind of being like, you made your bed, you have to lie in it, kind of thing. And I was like, and then every date that I had that was shitty, that people would fix me up, or I met someone, this is before cell phone apps and all that, but I would meet people and the date would be horrible. And there was this one guy who was a writer who I really admired his byline, and I thought he was like going to be this brilliant guy. And a friend was a mutual friend and set us up. And right away I was not attracted, but I thought maybe things will evolve. I was rearranging the sugar packets. Like, there's the equal, the sweet and low, all that shit, the regular sugar. So they were all jumbled up. So I was putting like the blue with the blue and the pink with the pink. And he's like, could you stop fucking with the sugars?
Oh my God.
And he like scared the shit out of me. And I was like, get me out of here. Like, when I get repulsed, it's like this wave of revulsion. I need to leave right away.
Yeah.
So I feigned a headache or something, but I was screeching up 6th Avenue in a taxi within like 30 seconds of him snapping at me.
Yeah.
I was like, if this is our first date and I'm not even your wife, like,
Yelling at you.
Yeah. So every time I had a bad date, which was often, I would just cry. I'd go home and cry. And I'd be crying in the backseat of the cab being like, you ruined your life, you fucking dumb bitch. But luckily I didn't. And I
Yeah.
met Harry. Not that you like need a man to show you that you did the right thing, but that whole Whitney Houston-y thing of like, you have to love yourself first, like that didn't happen for me. I was definitely looking. I was alone and but I did have really good friends around me. So that was lucky. But I had that feeling of just being kind of lost. But if I didn't have my great friends around me, and Hedwig and the Angry Inch had just come out and we saw it at the Jane Street Theater when it was off Broadway, and I burst into song on the cobblestones, and my friend Trip was like, "You're back. You're back. I lost you a little bit in that relationship, but you're back." And I knew I'd be okay. The whole time it wasn't like that free fall kind of desperation, but I was definitely sort of lonely and scared about the future. But honestly, the professional setbacks, even if they were a bummer, like my show getting canceled, I didn't cry. People all said like, "Did you cry?" And I really didn't, because all that stuff is gravy. I feel like the personal stuff is more important to me, and I wanted to have my personal life set. And I feel like the hardest times I've ever cried were always something about personal life. Like my daughter was born with a hole in her heart, and she's fine now. But when they first told me, "You're gonna have to go to, pediatric," this this surgeon who does all this stuff, I was bawling like uncontrollably, just because again, it's like your kid is such an extension. You just feel so vulnerable for this, especially it was this like little bitty baby, but she's fine. But you get these glimpses into what people go through. And when I was in the hospital, I also volunteered at Sloan Kettering for many years, and you just see the suffering of these parents with sick children, and I just feel like nothing bothers me. Like stupid shit doesn't bother me, because I know the gauntlet that people are going through, and I tend not to sweat the small stuff ever because of those Mondays that I volunteered. And I don't know, I feel like I'm pretty centered about, I'm just so fucking lucky and so grateful for just the health of my family, that when I have professional setbacks, I sort of shrug it off. And I've had many. I just tend not to give a shit. Like it's a bummer, but I don't.
Yeah,
get
like
that upset.
everything's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you like start with a plan? Did you feel like you had a plan?
No, I had
or is this
so
all
many.
just like you have? Because I'm really obviously like I named this surprised to be here, so I'm like pretty surprised.
I'm
Like, are you a goal-oriented person? Like
No, I sort of move the goal line whenever I'm there. But I really, when I was in high school and college, I was always in a play. I always wanted to do a play. Sometimes in college, I was in 2 plays at once. Like I was never not in a play. And when I was graduating and I like took the final bow, I thought like, this is so sad. I'm never going to act again, because I don't want to be an actress. I don't want to like fuck gross Harvey Weinstein whale people. Not that I was his type. I was too probably like old and brown and stuff. But like,
I don't know. I feel like he would have liked you.
No, I don't think
do
he
that
would.
to you.
No, I think he wants like tits on a stick, blondes and stuff. But anyway, I'm like offbeat looking. I like my looks, but I'm definitely like I'm like a little more severe.
So maybe you wouldn't like.
Which I'm fine with. By the way, I don't want to like appeal to those like walrus types anyway. So I knew that I would have loved to be an actress, but I didn't need it. Like you have to need it. But I knew I could get a job as a writer. I had already, written that article and had sent it around and had interviews and stuff, and I'd interned at Harper's Bazaar. So I had my boss there putting in good words. So I don't know. I guess I was sort of a workaholic. Like I needed a job. I could never have been, like cobbling together, rent with different jobs. Like I just wanted a job to go to. So I was in magazines for years, and then I thought I want to write books. And so I had written my first novel with my writing partner, Carrie. And then once I had kids, it kind of dovetailed into, we each kind of were doing our own books. And then the funny thing about acting again, starting at 40, 39, I sold the show and the pilot. And Andy Cohen, who bought it, was like, I actually started my show at 39. And it was a good turning point. That was something you could never have planned for. I sort of took this weird back door into it. So it was nothing you could even like shout into the universe, because it's too random.
Right.
And it was only when I had a big professional disappointment, which is my novels all sold way better than my essay collections. And I like my essay collections way better. And they're more me. I feel like I was kind of hiding behind characters in the novels. And they represent a time where, you know, I had 3 young children and I just wanted time alone. So I would like shit out a couple chapters here and there. It was sort of meant to be like beach reads for young moms who are harried.
Yeah.
And when I finally did my book, Sometimes I Feel Like a Nut, I felt like I was telling the truth kind of for
That was
the first time.
that
Yeah, that felt like it was my like balsamic reduction of myself. And it was a bestseller, you know. It said like best selling, da da da, but it didn't sell as well as my novels. So the publisher said, you know, we're not going to do another essay collection, but we'd like you to do another novel. And I just felt like a whore. I didn't want to write what they wanted. I want to write what I wanted to write. Right. You know, I've never done anything for the marketplace. I just want to do what's like clawing its way out of me. So rather than write, I did like that thing you hear actors say, like, what if I do one for you and one for me? Like, I'll write you a novel and then can I write my essay collection? And they were like, still no. So that was total rejection. But I wanted to be working and busy. So, and my kids were all now at this point, my youngest was in kindergarten. So I started working at Ogilvy doing copywriting. Like I was writing MaxiPad commercials. Like I was writing, you know, but I made good money and I felt like I had an office to go to 3 days a week. And the producers that I was working for, Tim Piper and Daniel Rosenberg, were like, you're funny. You should be on TV. You should write for TV. I was like, okay, you know, I'll get right on that. And they're like, we can help you. So they developed Odd Mom Out with me because when I had met with Andy Cohen, NBC, which owns Bravo and Peacock, where the show is now, they owned my book, Momzilla's. All my novels were sold and none were made. Like they buy 5 times as many things as they intend to produce. And, you know, every single thing got sold and I was all excited. And then jack shit happened. So it was really only when I kind of hustled and made it happen. But, you know, it was so circuitous. Sometimes it's like 2 steps backwards to go 3 steps forward. That's definitely how my career has played out.
And when did you ever work with Charlotte Beers at Ogilvy?
No, I just
She's
worked with
like
these
the
guys.
coolest. I feel like
I was in like a copywriter dungeon. No, I had like a cute cubicle and they had a good cafeteria.
Amazing.
So I was happy, but it was part-time.
It's interesting to hear you talk about it like in hindsight because it seems just so, you know, like when you're in the moment of like these situations and you're just like, it's like whatever decision you make, everything is just sort of ends up being okay. I mean, I talked to like, I've had, even at like 34, I think I'm like so old and like whatever, but
Oh my God, I could be your mother.
no, but like, you know, just sort of my 20s, I feel like when I watch like anyone who works for me or, you know, that I meet that's like in their early 20s and they're sort of like, I just don't know what I want to do. And I'm like, yeah, I like literally I moved home with my mom when I was 27 years old and I was, you know, I was looking for a job and things were just really looking pretty grim. And, you know, I just sort of, I think the most important thing for me was like reaching out and talking to people and seeing like, you know, really listening to their advice, not sort of just, you know, just like, you know, what did you do in this situation, you know, and like being really honest with myself. And like, I never thought I'd do what I'm doing. I don't even know how it feels like, you know, you work every day and then you sort of wake up and you're like, oh, wow. Like if you work hard every day on something that you love to do and your self-worth is sort of, you know, good enough, and you don't sort of just run away from it, like you just keep showing up every day, even if it's whatever happens, it seems that things just, they make sense, you know? It's
and some days you feel a little powerless because it's not happening fast enough, but you have to understand especially in a creative endeavor. You have to give yourself permission to lay fallow and not necessarily be productive every single day.
Yeah.
And I had days, I mean, in the pandemic, we were all kind of off the hook a little
Yeah.
bit. But then even after the pandemic, people were like, oh, I wrote this masterpiece. You know, Shakespeare wrote King Lear in a pandemic. And, you know, Shakespeare didn't have 3 kids to deal with. But even, I mean, my kids are older, but I just still felt like I'm just still not ready, or I don't want to do something just yet. And you can't pressure yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone feels that way. It's sort of, I don't know. I think like just throwing yourself out there and like seeing what happens.
I've always been a sprinter. There's sort of marathon personalities where they can be consistently
You know-
doing it every day. I have like fits and starts of productivity where I'll like shit out something I'm really proud of and then take a day off and then go edit it or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely need that. I like, there are days where I'm just like, you know, I just really can't do it today. You just can't do it every day
That's right.
at all. I mean, it can be so exhausting.
Yeah.
Do you, the people that you grew up with, are they like your closest friends?
My
or are they
closest
people
friends
that you've
are
met?
my 5 bridesmaids in my wedding. 1 is from Spence when I was little, 2 are from high school, and 2 are from college. And they're my same 5 best friends. Like, they're my sisters. The thing about having kids is you make these new friends, and some of them are great, and some of them suck. And you have to, like, weed the friendship garden. Because originally, you know, they say, like, it takes a village. And there were women I actually really cared about, but it is just kind of passing through.
Right.
And sometimes, you know, I'm from here, so it's different. If there's natives, commuters, and settlers. And if you're a settler, I think some people turn to their school as a community, and that's like where they fish for friends. Whereas like I kind of already had my friends, and I made new friends, especially with my oldest. You kind of bond more with your first kids class. But, you know, sometimes you get to the bottom of people or you date them as couples, like 2 couples go out. And some of these people like go on fucking ski trips together and they just met 5 minutes ago and then they're godmother of their next kid and shit. And that's not me. Like, and I made a couple mistakes where you meet people, they seem normal and cool, and then you realize like they're just not your people. So weirdly, I have like weeded the friendship garden.
You like
throughout.
open yourself up and you're like, I could try this, and then
Yeah, but I
feel
always
that.
keep 10% for myself. Like
Right.
I'm never really, they're never going to be as close to me as my original
Right.
5 best friends. But you know, I always will make an effort now, even in college, Sadie's friends. I actually really like the parents. And we have like a chat group and pictures of the kids on their trip and stuff. But like, it's just not the same as the history. You just have a different bandwidth, I guess.
Yeah. And how has like your relationship with your husband, how does that change like with your career? Do you think that
Such a
like,
great question. I was honestly, Sarah, like, so my friend Kira, I went to her 50th birthday last weekend, and they were saying they've been married longer than us, way long. So we've been married 21 years. And I think they're 28 years. They met when she was 21, really, really young. And he actually read at her 50th birthday, he read the poem that he wrote her for her 21st birthday. It was very cute. And he said, we've had 3 marriages, but to each other.
Wow.
And that totally struck
Yeah.
a nerve because I feel like the bump in my marriage where I had a hard time was those years with little kids because I felt like I was doing more of the work. And Harry would always, I'd be like, there's diarrhea up the back. And Harry would say, like, you're better at it. You're
Right.
better. I'm like, well, I have no choice. I had to get better at it. But also because I was a writer and he worked, you know,
Right.
in an office. So I just was up to my elbows in shit. And I started getting really resentful that as a woman, and even later when I was working, the school still calls the mom first.
Yeah.
There was just, I had all this resentment. But you know what? We got through it and we started taking trips. Like we didn't take any trips for 5 years
Like you
or
did
something.
stuff together.
Yeah.
You made,
And
like,
when
an effort.
it's funny because when we went on our honeymoon, we had a fabulous honeymoon. And when we came back,
Where did you go?
we went to Italy. We did a road trip.
Oh, nice.
And when we came back, I said, the honeymoon's over. And he said, the honeymoon will never be over. And I was so into him. He was like my boyfriend. Okay. Then we had the 3 kids and we would bicker about like stupid shit, whether it was like money or like in-laws or whatever it was. We bickered more. And then we kept saying like once Fletch goes to sleepaway camp, because we're Jewish, we're like down with that. Which
Yeah,
is
I
like
was always
marriage
very jealous
defibrillators.
of
It's
that.
really great. It's great for the kids and it's
I
great
mean,
for
just
us.
like camp friends.
Yeah, and I had my
Was-
camp friends. So when like girls get kind of cunty in middle school, I always had this life raft of like the camp friends. So when Fletch went to camp, we had 4 weeks. We rented a car and we repeated our honeymoon. And I remember saying to my best friend Vanessa, like, I'm going to be in a car with him for a month. Like, I mean, they're coming back divorced or madly in love. And luckily, it was the latter. I came back and he was my boyfriend. And he said, we were going to pick up the kids. And he was like, I'm sad because my girlfriend's leaving me and my wife's going to come back. Because, like, I'm obviously have to get back to, like, Captain Von Trapp mode. Not that I had a dog whistle, but, like, you know, it's just you're running a family, you're running a household, and there's all these moving parts in schools and all the school forms I filled out, all the stuff, you know. So it was
Yeah,
that
it's
thing of
so
like
much.
the wife kicking the girlfriend out because I felt so much more like free and sexy in a car in Italy on the Amalfi Coast than like dealing with the pediatricians and the, you know, all of this stuff.
Did you
was-
try to bring that in at all? Like, was there any effort in balance, or were you just like, all right, this is just
No, it's a great question. What I did was say, okay, we know that we're doing this every summer. But so you have the memories to draw upon, and then like in the dead of January, you have it to look forward to, but you can always like draw from that well. But I said we need to take every few months a weekend, just the two of us. So we'd dump the kids with my parents. See, I'm so lucky. Like people can't
Yeah.
do this. I would ditch them with my parents and we'd go to Connecticut or go, you know, driving. We weren't like hopping jets, but we would go somewhere within a couple hours of New York and just have that romantic time, but also sleep. Like
Yeah.
it sounds so
Oh
dumb,
my God,
but
no.
sleep.
It's like all I ever want to do.
No, that was such a luxury for us.
Yeah.
Now it's not. Now I sleep as much as I want. But like those years for me, that was like the biggest luxury was sleep. So we got that, and then we'd come home kind of rested, and then start all over again. But it's really important to carve that out, and also you're teaching your kids like we have our marriage comes first too, and that's a character in this family, and we're not just like our lives don't 100% revolve around you.
And when you sort of started, you know, the social media, like you're very like active on social media, do you think that like was he on board with that?
Yeah, he doesn't really care. Like Harry's so chill.
Yeah.
He's the most relaxed guy, which is actually great for our relationship because if I get stressed about something or someone or I get angry and I'll be like,
Like
what
he
if
doesn't join you there.
No, he's like they're miserable. Don't worry about it. You know, like nothing bothers him and everything will bother me about like Trump's presidency or whatever it was from
Yeah.
big to small.
Like the spiral.
Whereas like things don't upset him. He's the most even-keeled person. Which is
Yeah, it's a
good.
balance.
Yeah, he didn't care at all. Yeah, he was like fine with it.
And how did your kids feel about it?
They're fine with it. They don't really,
They love it.
you know, I feel like there was something recently that I posted that they're like, careful. Like I think if it ever gets too, I don't know, I'm not terribly PC. I never would want to offend anyone, but if you see what we got away with in Odd Mom Out, I mean, it's like crazy. It's a
Yeah.
different world now. But even like 3 years ago,
Yeah, how do you feel about that?
I stand by it. I don't care. We got letters. No one really
No,
cared.
cancel culture.
Oh, cancel culture. I feel like I don't know. I feel like if some things are just outwardly mean
Yeah.
and like body shaming or like these trolls who are so evil, where there is a deleterious effect on people's psyche and depression and all that. But I also think comedy, in terms of comedy in a writer's room, like you all take a sort of a vow of silence that you're going to just spitball freely and not be judged. And then now you hear of people coming out and saying like people were trying things on for size in writers' rooms and they're canceled or
Right.
I don't know. It's
Like the walking
it's the
on
death of
eggshells
comedy.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really I feel like it's really changed like the way everyone sort of moves around everything. You
Yeah,
know,
it's
like
true.
this but I don't know, you know. I can't say anything. It's
Yeah.
like, you know, I mean it is do you think that it is like what do you think the result of that would be?
I guess the lanes are probably a little narrower that you can drive
Yeah.
down, but as long as you are striking out and writing what is like coursing through your veins, then I think it's fine. I mean, I just wrote a screenplay. I'm producing a movie this year at some point. I'm raising money now. It's really fun being a beggar for cash. It's like Willy Loman, hat in hand. I fucking hate it.
It's like, it seems like you just like that kind of stuff doesn't shake you, like.
Oh no, it
that's
shakes me. I hate asking for money. I feel like a prostitute. I hated asking Condé Nast for my
like
$2,000 check.
Yeah.
And they owed it to me.
Yeah.
I'd be like, well, where's the check? I just felt dirty and weird. I have a strange relationship with money that way.
I have that.
I think men don't feel that at all. They're
Yeah.
like, you owe me this.
Right.
Whereas I'm like, if you could just see the invoice I sent 30 days ago, that would be awesome.
So
Thanks
sorry.
so much. Sorry, smiley faces.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate that aspect because I think of myself as a creative person and I want someone else to do the fundraising. Now, luckily, I have people in place helping me with that.
Yeah.
But I still am doing the song and dance, and they say all you need is a deck and a dream. So I have that. And I have a screenplay that I'm really super proud of. I co-wrote it with this husband and wife who worked at Samantha Bee. Carol Hartzell is the director of a movie that I did a cameo in. So that's how I met her, and she's super funny. So I'm basically just like trying to produce this. But when I look at it, I think it's really funny. I think it's the best thing I've done. And will it offend people? Probably, maybe. I don't know. I don't care because I don't think it's mean.
Yeah.
Just like I don't think Odd Mom Out's mean. I think you can be funny and kind of like skirt that edge. But if the intention is in the right place and it's just trying to make people laugh and not be like evil, mean-spirited where you're guiltily laughing.
Yeah, but it's funny that I feel like when I was like sort of, watching, and there is like a very like as a person, I feel like many people could find you intimidating, or like there's a like you're so warm and kind, so it's like the mean thing, like I don't.
No, I get that a lot. People say they're intimidated. I think it's because my looks are like a little bit harsh, like a little severe, but I'm actually the nicest person.
Yeah.
So here's how I work. It's like the earth. Okay. So there's like the crust, which is really super nice. Yeah. And then there's the mantle, which is like the lava, the hot lava. Like if you fuck with my kids or me or my husband or anyone I love, you're dead to me. Mm-hmm. Dead. And then there's the core, which is nice again.
Yeah. I get that.
Yeah.
I feel like
hashtag layers.
A lot of that
human geology
like can be portrayed as just like bitch,
I've gotten that before, but those are people who don't know me. So I don't what they think of me is none of my business because I know I'm nice. I don't really care. And if their snap judgment is like saying I'm a bitch, then I probably wouldn't like them either. Right. You know what I mean? I don't really care what people think because I probably wouldn't like them. I don't like most people.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty amazing how you've like just created like I think it's really hard for a lot of artists and like creatives, the sensitivity to navigating like the business side of, because it is something that's so emotional and it's so tied to like who you are. So when you're sort of putting yourself out there, it's like very raw. Like if it's gonna be good, it's gonna be truly yourself. And then you're met with this like, well, it's business and this is how it goes. And it's like, it's like splitting something in half that can't, I find it hard to split the two in half and to sort of just, oh, here's like this thing that's like an expression of like everything inside me, and like there's the monetizing and the money and the selling of yourself, and it's very hard to navigate. I found it that at times it can be isolating, and it's definitely been a hard thing for me, like having someone in between me and a person that I'm working with, like a business sort of like that side of it is super helpful, but also finding those people that you can trust to like run the business side or to speak for you and speak honestly for you. I feel like that for me has been the challenging part, and sort of knowing who you are and trusting that what you're doing is like true, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because when it comes to like the money stuff or the business side, messages can be so mixed. You know, you can be like, oh, well, it's just so personal, you know? So how do you separate your art and like the things that you create from that, you know? Because
I just think it's not what I do is not for everyone. Just like,
Right.
you know, anything great, I think, is not for everyone. I would much rather have a loyal, small, specific following than appeal to everybody and be like, you know, a crowd pleaser. Because then if you're a crowd pleaser, you have no thorns. I think what makes people interesting is like all their
I love
their edgy
that.
parts.
That's
You know,
the
I don't
best
want it
answer.
pummiced out. If you pumice it
Yeah.
all out, then, you know, what's the point of that?
Right.
So I don't take it personally because I know that there's shit that everyone else loves that I can't stand.
Right.
And so I just am doing it for myself or for the people who get me, not for everyone.
That's really like the best answer possibly, you know? I mean, it seems so obvious, but it's like a person who's a creative in that situation doesn't always think that way, you know, because when there can be like 100 people that are saying like how amazing it is and, you know, you're doing great, and there's like one person who says something, I feel like that can be sometimes louder, you know? It's like
That's
really
what Madonna said.
focusing. She did.
Yeah, she said like if there's a room of 100 people and 99 love me and one hates me, I that person is louder to me. And I was like, that's so weird.
Yeah,
I'm
you don't.
not like that at all.
Yeah,
I'd be like 99 people love me. Fuck that person.
yeah,
They're
but
an
that
idiot.
also I feel like
She's Madonna. Like who cares what that one person?
you had like the core, you know, like it seems like your parents were so like I think that it's amazing. It's almost like speaking a different language, because I feel like I didn't have that feeling like of safety, you know? And when I'm talking to you, I'm like, it seems like that's your default, is to be like, oh my God, like, you know, they love me. And I mean, for me, it has been like, my goals and my sort of like what I work on and try to like, you know, maintain is like, it really is not always for everyone, you know, like that answer would never have, it wouldn't have just popped in my head like that.
Well, now it will, and you'll
It's
know
so
when you walk
awesome.
into your awesome store that it's curated and cool and for specific people with taste, and you're not like limited express in a mall in every place in America. You know what I mean? The whole point is that it's heightened and culty, and that you want the people that want you.
Yeah, but for lots of people, I think it's not always like the default, you know? So I think hearing that it feels like groundbreakingly obvious, but like genius. I was, you know, when I was thinking about you coming here, and I was like, you know, we don't know each other that well, and you were so like, you know, I mean, you first of all, you emailed like right back, like,
I always do
you're
that.
just like the man. I mean,
I don't get when
really,
people like
really
disappear for 4 days.
really-
It's so weird.
yeah. I mean, it was just you know, having you here and like I was thinking when I even called BJ and I was like, okay, so like, tell me.
We share
like,
a very close friend, by the way.
yes, who's
listeners.
also like the most amazing,
Who's the
woman.
best? Who's the
And,
best? I've been friends with her for 25 years.
You know, the thing she said was like, you're the most loyal friend.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, and that is like,
I will
for me,
cut
yeah,
you if someone like fucks with my friends. They're dead to me.
it's the best quality.
Like their boyfriend from 8th grade, though, I'll snub. Like I'd rather be immature than disloyal.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that, and at times am. And for now, like after this, I'm not. Well, maybe, you know, I was like, I want to be unapologetically myself.
Yeah. I feel like you are.
Yeah, but there is the apology that comes later.
Yeah,
in my
okay. You
mind.
have to beat that out.
I'm gonna
with a stick.
I'm gonna beat it.
beat it out.
0. Like I'm done. But yeah, it was like really amazing having you. And
Thank you so
Thank you
much. I'm
so much
so
for
honored to be the
coming.
inaugural guest
Oh my
in this
God.
fabulous room.
thank you so
It's such
much.
a happy, joyful womb, and I love the
It is a
octagonal.
womb.
It's like an Asher cut ceiling.